He was told the world outside the monastery walls was a torrent of chaos, a meaningless storm of noise and fury. For 15 years, from the time he was a boy until the morning he broke his vows, he believed it. He believed the chants, the meditations, the silent work of tending the gardens and transcribing ancient texts were a shield. He saw the high stone walls not as a prison, but as a sanctuary protecting a fragile flame of inner peace from the howling winds of a fallen world. He was wrong. The peace they cultivated was a phantom. It was a delicate flower grown in a sealed greenhouse, beautiful to behold, but so fragile it would disintegrate at the first touch of an unfiltered wind. It was a peace born of absence, not of strength. And so he left. He forsook the silence not for noise, but for truth. He walked out of the gates with nothing but his robes, a name he no longer used, and a single, burning question. What is the nature of a peace that cannot be broken? He sought a clarity so ruthless it could cut through any illusion, any distraction, any weakness. This was not a search for tranquility. This was a declaration of war. A war against the comfortable lies we tell ourselves, against the gilded cages we build to protect our own fragility. A war for a power that is not given, but forged in the very fires of the chaos we are taught to fear. You are here because you feel it too, don't you? That subtle, gnawing sense that the peace you're chasing is a mirage. You organize your life, you build your routines, you try to control your environment, all in an effort to quiet the storm inside. You read the books, you listened to the gurus, you practice the mindfulness exercises, hoping to find that elusive switch that will finally turn off the noise. But the world keeps intruding. The demands of your job, the drama of relationships, the constant barrage of information, the relentless pressure to be more, to do more, to have more. The chaos always finds a way in, and in your most honest moments you admit the truth. Your peace is fragile. It depends on things going your way. It depends on the world conforming to your expectations. The moment something goes wrong, an unexpected bill, a harsh criticism, a moment of betrayal, the walls of your carefully constructed sanctuary come crumbling down, and you are left exposed, trembling in the heart of the storm once more. You have been taught to seek shelter, to run from the chaos. But what if the only way to truly conquer the storm is to walk into its eye? What if the unbreakable inner strength you seek can only be found by intentionally putting yourself in the path of the hurricane? The forsaken monk, the man who traded a life of manufactured peace for a war of absolute clarity, discovered a different path. It is not a path of avoidance, but of confrontation. It is not about building higher walls, but about becoming the storm yourself. The first casualty in the war for ruthless clarity is the myth of a perfect environment. The monk, let us call him Kalen, for that was the name he had abandoned and now chose to reclaim, found himself in the heart of a city that was the very antithesis of his former life. The air, once scented with pine and damp earth, now tasted of exhaust fumes and hot asphalt. The silence, once so profound he could hear the beating of his own heart, was shattered by a cacophony of sirens, shouting, and the ceaseless rumble of a city that never slept. In the monastery, his days were governed by the gentle ringing of a bell, a predictable rhythm that soothed the soul. Here, his senses were assaulted from every direction. Towering screens screamed advertisements for desires he had never known. The sheer density of human life pressed in on him, a torrent of faces, each a vortex of unspoken anxieties, ambitions, and pains. His first instinct was to retreat. His monastic training screamed at him to find a quiet corner, to close his eyes, to regulate his breathing, to find the silence within. He tried. He found a small, neglected park, sat upon a bench, and attempted to descend into the meditative state that had been his refuge for a decade and a half. But it was impossible. The noise was not just around him, it was in him. The frantic energy of the city had seeped into his nervous system. His heart beat to the rhythm of the traffic, His thoughts raced with the urgency of the pedestrians rushing past. His peace, the peace he had spent 15 years cultivating, was utterly and completely useless here. It was a counterfeit coin, worthless in this new economy of chaos. He sat on that bench for hours, a statue of stillness amidst the frantic motion, and for the first time he felt true despair. He had given up everything for a strength he did not possess. He had forsaken a life of predictable serenity for a world that was actively hostile to his very being. The teachings of his masters echoed in his mind, warning him of this exact outcome. They had told him the world was a fire that would consume the unprepared soul, and he was burning. It was in that moment of absolute brokenness that the first seed of ruthless clarity began to sprout. The thought came not as a gentle epiphany, but as a brutal realization. His training was not wrong, but incomplete. He had been taught how to keep the flame of peace alive in a room where the air was still. He had never been taught how to shield it in a hurricane. His mistake was in trying to replicate the monastery in the city. He was trying to silence the world, an impossible task. The true path was not to silence the world, but to find a silence within himself that the world could not touch. The world was not the enemy. His expectation that the world should be silent was the enemy. This is the first lesson you must absorb. Your frustration, your anxiety, your feeling of being overwhelmed does not come from the chaos of your life. It comes from your deep-seated belief that your life shouldn't be chaotic. You believe you are entitled to a life of ease, predictability, and comfort. You resent every interruption, every unexpected problem, every person who doesn't behave the way you want them to. You are at war with reality itself, a war you can never win. The first act of power is to declare a truce, to accept on a cellular level that chaos is the default state of the universe. Life is not a serene garden, it is a wild, untamable jungle. Your job is not to pave it over, but to learn how to navigate it with skill and grace. Stop trying to control the world. It is a fool's errand. The world is a storm. Let it rage. Your task is to become the unwavering eye of that storm. Kalen understood this now. He could not stop the sirens from wailing, but he could choose not to let them pierce his inner sanctum. He could not stop the crowds from rushing, but he could choose to move through them with a deliberate and unhurried pace. He could not escape the sensory overload, but he could learn to observe it without being consumed by it. He had to stop fighting the ocean and learn to surf its waves. He began his new training not on a meditation cushion, but on the moving battlefield of the city streets. He took a job as a bicycle courier, a profession that plunged him into the very heart of the urban chaos he had once feared. Every day was a relentless series of deadlines, of navigating snarled traffic, of dealing with impatient clients and the constant threat of physical danger. It was, by any measure, a high-stress, anxiety-inducing existence. It was the perfect furnace in which to forge a new kind of mind. In the monastery, discipline was an external framework. The ringing of the bell told him when to wake, when to eat, when to work, when to pray. His choices were minimized, his path laid out for him. It was a discipline of compliance. Now, in the roaring heart of the city, he had to discover a new discipline, one that came from within. There was no bell to guide him, only the relentless ticking of the clock and the crushing weight of responsibility. His old meditative practices were no longer about achieving a state of blissful emptiness. They were about survival. He began to practice what he called active meditation. While weaving through traffic, a symphony of angry horns his soundtrack, he would focus on the feeling of the handlebars in his hands, the sensation of the pedals beneath his feet, the rhythm of his own breathing. He trained his mind to stay anchored in the present moment, to resist the pull of anxiety about the next delivery or frustration over the last one. This is the second principle. Discipline is not a set of rules you follow, it is a weapon you forge. True discipline is not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It is about aligning your actions with your deepest intentions, moment by moment by moment. You don't need a perfectly quiet room to find your center. You can find it in the middle of a screaming match with your boss. You can find it when your children are running wild and the house is a mess. You can find it when you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting. The secret is to anchor your attention to something you can control. Your breath is the most powerful anchor you have. It is always with you. In any moment of rising panic or overwhelming stress, you can return to your breath. Feel the air enter your nostrils, fill your lungs, and then release. This simple act is a declaration of sovereignty over your own mind. The world can rage around you, but you, and you alone, control the rhythm of your own breathing. Kalen used his breath as his anchor in the storm. An angry taxi driver would cut him off, and instead of reacting with a surge of adrenaline and rage, he would consciously deepen his breath. A client would be rude and dismissive, and instead of letting the sting of disrespect linger, he would focus on the cool air entering his lungs and the warm air leaving. He was not suppressing his emotions. He was refusing to be enslaved by them. He was creating a space between the external event and his internal response. And in that space, he found his power. He learned to distinguish between pain and suffering. The physical pain of a grueling day on the bike was unavoidable. The aching muscles, the exhaustion, the scrapes and bruises from a minor fall, these were facts. Suffering, however, was a choice. Suffering was the story he told himself about the pain. This is unbearable. I can't do this anymore. Why is this happening to me? These were the narratives of a victim. Kalen began to systematically dismantle these narratives. When his legs burned with lactic acid on a steep hill, he would not label the sensation as bad. He would simply observe it. There is a strong sensation of heat and tightness in my thighs. By stripping the emotional label from the physical sensation, he stripped it of its power to create suffering. He was not denying the pain. He was refusing to multiply it with his own mind. This is a profound shift in perspective that is available to you right now. The events of your life are neutral. They are simply data. It is your interpretation of those events that causes you to suffer. Your boss criticizes your work. That is an event. You can interpret it as I'm a failure, I'm going to get fired, and create a spiral of anxiety and self-doubt. Or you can interpret it as here is some feedback I can use to improve, and see it as an opportunity for growth. The event is the same. The interpretation, and therefore the experience, is entirely within your control. This is not about positive thinking. This is about precise thinking. It is about refusing to add a layer of dramatic storytelling to the raw data of your experience. As Kalen's inner discipline hardened, he began to notice a change in his perception of the world. The city, which had once seemed like a monstrous, chaotic entity, began to reveal its underlying patterns. He saw the rhythms in the flow of traffic, the unspoken language of pedestrians, the intricate dance of commerce and communication that held the entire metropolis together. He was no longer a victim of the chaos. He was a student of it. This led him to the third stage of his transformation, the weaponization of perception. He realized that most people live their lives in a state of perceptual fog. They are not truly seeing the world around them. They are seeing a projection of their own fears, insecurities, and desires. They see a world of threats and obstacles, of competitors and judges. Their reality is a reflection of their own inner turmoil. Kalen had spent 15 years in an environment designed to purify his perception through subtraction. The monastery removed all the variables so he could see the one true thing. Now, he was learning to purify his perception through immersion. He was training himself to see things exactly as they were, without the filter of his own ego. He began to study the people he interacted with every day. The stressed-out executive barking into his phone, the harried mother trying to juggle a stroller and groceries, the lonely old man feeding pigeons in the park. In the monastery, he would have pitied them as lost souls, trapped in the cycle of worldly attachment. Now, he saw them with a different kind of clarity. He saw not their anger, but the fear beneath it. He saw not their impatience, but the pressure driving it. He saw not their loneliness, but their deep, universal yearning for connection. This was not an intellectual exercise. It was a profound shift in how he experienced reality. He began to see that everyone is fighting a hard battle, one you know nothing about. This understanding did not make him soft. On the contrary, it made him invincible. How can someone's anger harm you when you see it for what it is, a cry of pain? How can someone's criticism wound you when you understand it as a reflection of their own insecurity, not a statement about your worth? He was developing an immunity to the emotional contagions of the world. He moved through the city like a ghost, present but untouched. He could engage with the world on his own terms, because he was no longer at the mercy of its emotional currents. This is the power you are searching for. The ability to remain calm and centered while everyone around you is losing their minds. The ability to make clear, rational decisions when others are blinded by panic and fear. The ability to connect with people on a deeper level because you are not threatened by their surface-level emotions. This is not about becoming unfeeling or detached. It is about achieving a level of emotional clarity that allows you to feel everything, but be controlled by nothing. It is the difference between being a boat tossed about by the waves and being the lighthouse that stands unshaken in the storm. So how do you cultivate this power? You start by practicing intentional observation. Choose one interaction today and make it your training ground. It could be a meeting at work, a conversation with your partner, or even just the checkout process at the grocery store. Your goal is to observe without judgment. Notice the other person's tone of voice, their body language, the words they choose. But instead of immediately reacting and formulating your response, simply witness. Ask yourself, what is the emotion behind their words? What fear or desire might be driving their behavior? Do not try to fix them or win the argument. Simply seek to understand. This practice, repeated over and over, will begin to rewire your brain. You will start to see the hidden machinery behind human interaction. You will develop a kind of X-ray vision that allows you to see the emotional truth beneath the surface of things. And the more you see, the less you will be controlled by what you see. One rainy afternoon, Kalen was tasked with delivering a sensitive legal document to a powerful attorney on the top floor of a skyscraper. The deadline was perilously tight. As he raced through the city, the chain on his bicycle snapped. He was miles from his destination. The rain was turning into a downpour, and the clock was ticking. In his old life, this would have been a moment of catastrophic failure. His carefully maintained inner peace would have shattered. He would have been consumed by a wave of panic, self-recrimination, and despair. He would have seen the broken chain as a sign from the universe that he was on the wrong path, that he should have stayed in the safety of the monastery. But now his response was different. He stood over the broken bicycle in the pouring rain, and he did not feel anger or panic. He felt nothing. Or rather, he felt a profound and unwavering calm. The event was the event, a broken chain, a ticking clock, a rainstorm. These were neutral facts. They were not good or bad. They simply were. His mind, now a finely honed weapon, immediately began to analyze the situation with ruthless clarity. Option 1, try to fix the chain. Unlikely given the tools he had and the time constraint. Option 2, abandon the bike and run. Possible, but the distance was great. Option 3, find an alternative mode of transportation. He looked up and saw the entrance to a subway station. He slung his messenger bag over his shoulder, left the broken bike where it lay, and descended into the station. He navigated the crowded train, emerged into the heart of the financial district, and ran the final blocks to the skyscraper. He arrived at the attorney's office, drenched and gasping for breath, with less than a minute to spare. The attorney, an imposing man with a reputation for a ferocious temper, took the document and looked Kalen up and down with a mixture of amusement and disdain. "You look like you've been through a war," the man said. Kalen met his gaze, and for the first time in a long time he smiled. "Something like that," he replied. In that moment he understood. The war was not against the city, the traffic, the deadlines, or the rain. The war was never external. The war was against the weakness within himself. The war was against the part of him that craved comfort and ease, the part that flinched from pain, the part that told stories of victimhood and despair. And on that rainy afternoon, standing in the opulent office of a powerful man, drenched and exhausted but utterly serene, he knew he had won a decisive battle. He had not controlled the external world. The world had thrown its chaos at him, and he had not broken. He had adapted. He had overcome. He had proven that his peace was not a fragile flower grown in a greenhouse. It was an oak tree with roots that ran to the very center of the earth. It could withstand any storm. This is the state of being that is your birthright, an inner fortress of peace and power that no external event can breach. But it is not a gift. It cannot be stumbled upon or wished into existence. It must be built, brick by brick, through deliberate practice and unwavering commitment. It is built in the moments when you choose to breathe instead of react. It is built when you choose to observe your pain instead of telling a story about it. It is built when you choose to see the world with clarity instead of through the fog of your own ego. The journey of the forsaken monk is a map. It shows that the path to true strength is not a retreat from the world, but a deeper engagement with it. You must be willing to forsake the comfortable sanctuary of your illusions. You must be willing to walk into the heart of the storm. Think about the monastery in your own life. What is the comfortable, predictable, and ultimately limiting environment you have created for yourself? It might be a job that you hate but that pays the bills. It might be a relationship that is comfortable but passionless. It might be a set of beliefs about yourself and the world that keep you safe but small. This is your gilded cage. It provides a semblance of peace, a fragile security, but it prevents you from ever discovering the true depth of your own strength. The first step on the path to ruthless clarity is to acknowledge the existence of this cage. The second is to begin, deliberately and systematically, to dismantle it. This does not mean you have to quit your job or end your relationship tomorrow. It means you have to start intentionally exposing yourself to the things you fear. If you fear public speaking, join a Toastmasters club. If you fear rejection, make it a goal to get rejected once a day by asking for something unreasonable. If you fear physical hardship, start a rigorous exercise program. You must become a warrior, and a warrior needs a training ground. Your fears are your training ground. Every time you confront a fear and act anyway, you are forging your will. You are teaching your nervous system that you are not a fragile creature who needs to be protected from the world. You are a powerful, adaptable being who can thrive in any environment. Kalen's journey did not end with the delivery of a legal document. That was just one battle in a lifelong war. He continued to seek out challenges, to place himself in situations that tested the limits of his inner fortitude. He learned that true strength is not a final destination. It is a continuous process of growth and refinement. He came to understand that the ultimate expression of power is not the ability to dominate others, but the ability to remain utterly unperturbed by them. He could walk into a room filled with angry, powerful people and feel no fear, only a quiet curiosity. He could listen to the most venomous insults and hear only the pain of the person speaking them. He had achieved a level of freedom that most people cannot even imagine, a freedom not from the world but within it. The final piece of the puzzle for Kalen was the rediscovery of purpose. In the monastery, his purpose was given to him, to serve God, to seek enlightenment, to uphold the traditions of his order. When he left, He was adrift in a sea of meaninglessness. His job as a courier was a means to an end, a training ground, but it did not feed his soul. He realized that a life of ruthless clarity without a guiding purpose was an empty victory. It was like having a perfectly crafted sword with no one to protect, no cause to fight for. An unbreakable mind is a tool. The question is, what will you use it for? Will you use it to accumulate more wealth, more status, more pleasure? Or will you use it to serve something larger than yourself? This is the question that separates a mere survivor from a true master. A survivor uses their strength to protect themselves. A master uses their strength to lift others. Kalen found his new purpose not in a grand, dramatic gesture, but in the small, everyday interactions that his newfound clarity had opened up to him. He started to see the moments where a single, well-chosen word could diffuse a tense situation. He saw how his own calm presence could soothe the anxiety of those around him. He began to teach, not by preaching from a pulpit, but by living his philosophy, by being an example of what was possible. He would talk to the stressed-out executive about the power of a single, conscious breath. He would help the harried mother by simply holding her groceries while she attended to her child. He became a quiet force for order and peace in the very heart of the chaos he had once feared. He had left the monastery to find a peace that could not be broken. He had found it, and in the end, he discovered the final, ruthless truth. The only way to truly keep that peace is to give it away. Your own war for ruthless clarity begins now. It begins with the decision to stop running from the chaos of your life and to start using it as your training ground. It begins with the commitment to forge an unbreakable will, one conscious breath at a time. It begins with the practice of seeing the world and the people in it with piercing, unemotional clarity. This is not an easy path. It will demand everything of you. You will be tempted to retreat to your old comforts, to your old illusions. You will face moments of profound doubt and despair. But if you persist, you will discover a power within yourself that you never knew existed. You will become unrecognizable to your former self. You will become a force of nature, a calm center in the endless storm of life. The question is not whether you are capable of this transformation. The question is whether you are brave enough to begin. What is the one comfortable illusion you are willing to forswear today? What is the first battle in your war for ruthless clarity? Share your declaration in the comments below. Join the community of warriors who have chosen to walk this path. Your journey is your own, but you do not have to walk it alone. And as you step onto the battlefield of your own life, remember the lesson of the forsaken monk. The world is a storm. You are not meant to find shelter from it. You are meant to become its eye.